John Spencer, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
In particular, really appreciate you being here because you've seen me be critical of you and some of your opinions on this. And you reached out and said, hey, I'm happy to have this conversation if you want to actually talk to me rather than just, and I got the point rather than just criticizing you on a YouTube video. So I appreciate you doing this because a lot of people would not. A lot of people would just say, well, screw you. I don't, and you're not that type, and I really appreciate it.
And I really respect that you would be willing to do that because I mean it's happened to me in the past, and other people are on the other side of that, or just want to criticize or take out of context, or not actually have a conversation. So I really appreciate Kim, you being willing to talk to me.
Well, I do want to understand, and I know many of us watching want to understand the Israeli perspective on this. You have been to Gaza now 3 times since the start of this war, since October 7th. You've been on the front lines. You've seen inside the Israeli operations, I would imagine. You've been working very closely with the IDF, would be my guess. Tell us, okay, so many of us say this is a genocide. What we're watching, what we're seeing we're seeing the videos come out in real time, unlike what we've seen in previous conflicts when the internet wasn't as robust or as easily accessible as it is right now. So we're seeing unfold. I mean, this is not looking good. I mean, we're watching what looks like the entire Gaza Strip from our perspective looks demolished. Is it fully demolished? When you go visit, are there places for civilians to live?
So that's a great question. And the places I go, like Khan Yunis, Central Gaza, with the brigade and division commanders that are fighting, there is a lot of destruction. There's no doubt, immense amounts of destruction. Have I seen like portions of Khan Yunis when I was there that are not completely destroyed? Yes, of course. The problem is you're right on the ability for all us to watch, to see the drone footage of destroyed neighborhoods is really hard to put that in framework of like, how was this not intentional? How is this okay? Because we didn't have that capability. And people often say that if we would have had TikTok during World War II, who knows what would have happened, or just any urban battle that I can rattle off to you,
Mm-hmm.
starting chronologically backwards: Mosul, Mawari, Aleppo, Raqqa, Fallujah. The scenes are very similar when a defender, Mariupol. I mean, when a defender defends the urban terrain, how hard it is to fight, and why I chose this as my kind of specialty is because of how hard it is to fight in urban areas where every building that you're seeing that got destroyed can be turned into a battlefield. You can have
Mm-hmm.
and it's historic. You can have week-long battles, like in the Battle of Manila Way, even, where you can have multi-week battles over single buildings, which require a lot of destruction to defeat the enemy in there. Even if you evacuate 100% of the civilians, that destruction is very analogous, very, you don't want to say common, but very similar to anything that's come before Gaza.
I think, though, that with the fact that we can actually watch this unfold on the internet with the advance of technology like that, there's also been an advancement in warfare, the evolution of modern warfare. And we can't compare, in my viewpoint, this conflict with, let's say, Dresden. I mean, the types of ammunition, the military. I mean, I'm not a military expert, so I'm going to use all the wrong words, just so you know. You can feel free to correct me. But we're using different bombs, different guns, different technology. We're advanced. And so I think the expectation is because we're advanced, we're even more advanced today, 10 years after 2014. I mean, 2014, we were not as sophisticated as we are today when it comes to the advancements in technology. So I think our expectation is not just that we can witness this with our own eyes because of the advent of the internet, but also we have an expectation that our military has evolved and we know for a fact that our military is able to do pinpoint targeting. They can see who's in the building, how many people exactly. They know with these drones, with everything that they've developed, especially as we've moved toward this over the horizon style warfare, right, where we're using a lot of drones. We're not actually putting boots on the ground anymore. We can do that. So if we can do that, I think the big question that many of us have is why aren't we? Why? I say we. I know it's Israel fighting, but we're the ones providing them with the weaponry. So if we're giving them our weapons to use, and we've got our guys over there, including yourself over there, talking to them and even training them, why are they not using that over the horizon style warfare of pinpoint targeted drones that are accurate rather than 2,000-pound dumb bombs?
Okay. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I remember you talking about let's not use World War II examples because of the Geneva Conventions, especially the Fourth Geneva Conventions, which says we won't bomb populations trying to, because war is a contest of will, like the firebombing of Tokyo. We won't use those examples because we, as a world, said we won't do that anymore. Although there are still countries like Russia and Syria that do, which are trying to punish, which is very important, the population in order to force the government and the military to give up fighting.
Hmm.
We've said we won't do that no more, and I can say with strong research that's not what Israel has done. It's not what the United States has done in the past, targeting civilians to try to get them to convince their governments. On the precision paradox is what we call it, right? So this ideal that we're way more advanced than we were in the past, right? We
Hmm.
have bombs that can hit a single room on a single floor of a high rise, but that takes out of context the actual goal of the military in that environment. It came really to fruition in the 2016 to 17 Battle of Mosul, which is just 3,000 ISIS fighters, 3 to 5, depending on how you count, holding a city of a million, 100,000 Iraqi security forces who let the enemy have the city for 2 years and prepared it to defend, which really comes into why can't you do it a different way with less destruction? If the enemy has prepared the environment, which really all his most historical battles, I'm talking from Stalingrad till now, most urban battles are meeting engagements where the two militaries met and the city wasn't prepared for defense. Even if you talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and attacking Kyiv, the city wasn't prepared to be defended. So why does that the 2004 Battle of Fallujah, which we can talk about if you want, where immense amount of firepower, why is that the biggest battle of the entire Iraq War? And why is this small ISIS force in the city of Mosul the biggest battle since World War II? It's because if the enemy prepares it to defend, it doesn't matter how many precision guided munitions. Matter of fact, we were the air power backing the Iraqi security forces to liberate Mosul from the evil ISIS people defending it. And we fired so many precision guided munitions that we ran out of them. Because if I'm an enemy, and like you said, I wrote a book for Ukrainians on how to defend their urban terrain, I can make you destroy every building even if you have a precision guided munition along a block, because I have a tunnel that goes to, or a hole through the wall. And that's what we saw. We fired so many precision guided munitions in Mosul, we, the United States, helping the Iraqi security forces, that we ran out of our strategic stockpile of Hellfire missiles, which is a very precise weapon. Why do you need a 2,000 pound? And I'd argue with you on what is a dumb bomb and what is not. Why did why did Israel need 2,000 pound bombs? Because a 2,000 pound bomb, even a precision guided, which what JDAM kits are, make a dumb munition smart. The first thing that Israel asked for on October 8th from the United States was Iron Dome interceptors and JDAM kits to turn dumb bombs into smart bombs. So to say, yes, for some reason, the world has focused on 2,000 pound bombs. What is a 2,000 pound bomb used for? It's used to penetrate tough environments like tunnels and bunkers. We fired 14 to 15,000 2,000 pound bombs in 49 days invading Iraq or in the Persian Gulf, trying to send Iraq a message to get out of Kuwait. We fired over 5,000, more than Israel has, in 30 days invading Iraq to overthrow that regime. Now, we can argue about whether you believe we should have been there, but the 2,000 pound bomb, the reason it's used and why it was used in Gaza was because Hamas built something that no military has faced, which is a complete environment where they're under the civilian buildings. So a 2,000 pound bomb penetrates anywhere from 16 to 50 feet underground. And where is the enemy? Where is Hamas? So even if you say that they evacuate 100% of the civilians and move them out of harm's way, you're still going to need 2,000 pound bombs because the enemy is in tunnels that you can't reach without high diameter munitions.
Right. And I understand that. I understand that these bombs were intended to penetrate and get to the tunnel system that is underground. I understand that that is the reasoning why they were used. I think, though, that I think there's a couple of things that maybe we need to start with before we kind of get into more of the nuance of it. So Iraq, of course, I mean, we could argue all day about whether or not we should have been there, but I don't think there is a hefty amount of criticism, whether you think we should have been there or not. There's a hefty amount of criticism with that war on. I mean, many of us believe that our American leaders were war criminals during that there was a lot of crimes that, I mean, that is not a bad, I don't think anything that happened in Iraq is necessarily something to compare to, I guess is my point of being like the pillar of how warfare should be conducted. I don't think any of us believe that anything that happened in Iraq was good. And we could, and the way we could look at that is, where are we at now with Iraq? You know, what is, we're still there. They want us, many of them want us to leave. I mean, what was the ultimate outcome of Iraq? Was it beneficial? What was, you know, I just don't know if it's a healthy comparison. I don't know if anything in Syria is also a comparison. I mean, with Syria, you've got Assad, right, after there was maybe 1% to 2% of the population who had been killed in the Syrian civil war, unless you were referring to something else. You know, we'd talking about, oh, we got to get rid of the guy. You know, the guy's a monster. So if we're
No,
looking
I'm
at
talking about the ISIS, the counter ISIS campaign
oh, okay.
in Raqqa, Aleppo, not the Syrian, which I think is a huge genocide, actually by definition, where 300,000 Syrian civilians killed, targeted and killed, 18 a day for 10 years. And I haven't seen, as somebody who watches war, as much protest against the Syrian war as I have seen Israel's war against Hamas and Gaza. So if you don't
Well,
want to use Iraq,
yeah,
I agree. What war? Since I can walk you through every war since ancient warfare,
yeah.
what war is an example to use for comparison against what Israel and the IDF, and I would separate the political leadership reasons for the war versus the soldiers like me who invaded Iraq in 2003 being given a mission, and then how they achieved that mission while protecting civilians and only targeting the combatant that has been identified.
Right. I would think that for the purpose of comparison, we would have to compare modern an equivalent like the Russia invasion of Ukraine. And I would think that that would be more
Okay.
appropriate because it's happening simultaneously using the same sort of technology in the same sort of era. And I would say that there has been a huge amount of attention. I mean, you look at the protests that did happen in the streets, no matter which side you're on with Russia or Ukraine, we have seen before the Israel onslaught onto Gaza, we have seen a huge number of, I mean, look at all the Ukrainian flags people were flying. Look at all of the protests that happened in the streets on behalf of Ukraine. I mean, there's been a huge outpouring because the internet, and it is modern. And this isn't even, you know, we're not funding Russia, of course, right? Funding Ukraine. So I would think that that would be the most reasonable comparison. And when we do look at that comparison, what is the percentage of hospitals that have been demolished in Ukraine compared to the hospitals in Gaza? And that is about 35% in Ukraine have been rendered useless, inoperable, versus 70 to 80% in Palestine. When you look at the percentage of the population that has been killed from a percentage perspective, so not even looking at the casualty to combatant ratio, but instead looking at the percentage of the actual population killed. I mean, you know, and this is one of the points that you've brought up many times, and it's totally a completely accurate point to say we don't really know the numbers when a war is active. We can't possibly know the numbers in an active war. It's been very difficult getting the casualty numbers out of Ukraine and Russia, in fact. They've been the most, that's been actually more difficult to figure out who's been killed and how many people there. But I think it's, and the numbers are the range wildly. But I would think that right now at this point, we know that 1.5% that we know of the Palestinian population has been killed. What percentage of that is combatants to civilians? You know, we could have that discussion right now with the roughly 38,000 people who've been killed. It's about, 52 or, at least 50% are women and children. Israel has come out now. Maybe you have better numbers than I do, but Israel's come out saying 20,000 of them have been Hamas fighters. That's impossible. That's not an accurate number. There's no way that every man they killed is Hamas, and that's what the numbers would be if you break that down. There's just no way. But when it comes to the numbers, I'm not 100%. It's tricky because we just don't know the numbers, and we won't know the numbers until years later. I mean, to your point, like Iraq, Mosul, for example, what were they saying the numbers were originally? Like 380 is what the number. I think that's the official number of civilians killed in that battle. When really now the numbers have been 9,000 to 11,000 is what we find out later. But coalition forces say it's like 380 people. I mean, that's like their official number, from what I understand.
I haven't seen that. I mean, I wrote the case study on the Battle of Mosul, and I used official U.S. military numbers to include the United Nations. There's kind of an agreement of that 9 to 11,000. I didn't see any of keeping it in the hundreds. Actually, the members of the Mosul leadership, like mayor, said it probably is like 40,000. This gets you to this discrepancy in the numbers.
Right.
And why most of those numbers that you rattled off on Gaza, I strongly disagree with, just from the facts, who gets the information, how it is. 70% of the hospitals not working is not true. But let's stick on, if you want to stick on Ukraine,
Yeah.
although the context really matters. And why do I compare battles where a defender has seized urban terrain and then you have somebody trying to take that urban terrain from them? Why it's hard to compare Ukraine, which the scale and the context of the operations are different. Although I'll show you, like in Kyiv, which I have written the case study on the Battle of Kyiv in February 2022, where Russia was defeated, hundreds of thousands of civilians trapped in the tunnels of Kyiv. So this is the fact, again, there is ownership of the leadership within wars. And in Gaza, 100%, all 2.2 million of the population could fit in the 400-mile tunnels of Hamas. Not one single one's allowed, because they say they're not trying to protect their civilians. That's somebody else's problem. They're actually trying to get more killed. But when I went to Kyiv, hundreds of babies were born in the subways of Kyiv because Russia was attacking, and they were sought refuge in there. But if you want to take light context of the Ukraine war, I do have a problem with aggregating data and disaggregating data to then compare against different vignettes of warfare. But like in the city of Mariupol, where the actual Ukrainians tried to resist, many portions of it flattened. Hospitals bombed, which is different than what has happened in Gaza. There's not been one hospital that was a bomb dropped on top of it for the purpose of destroying the hospital while the civilians are in it. And this is what happened. Russia carpet bombed portions of Mariupol, to include a theater full of 600 women and children with the words children written on the outside in Russian, and they still dropped multiple 500-plus pound bombs on the theater and killed hundreds, and have never let. The only thing we can see, again, this is how people do, right? Since if they won't let you in portions of occupied Ukraine, mass graves, huge mass graves. So the number of people who have actually died in that one battle, although there are others, completely flattened urban areas where war happened, like Bakhmut, Donetsk, and all these others. The civilian suffering was huge on purpose, right? Russia attacking on purpose, hospitals, theaters, everything. This gets to what is the realm and who do you hold responsible for actions? Do you hold the IDF responsible for its actions in Gaza? 100%. And this is why the United States, despite all the numbers, the United States administration, who has been critical, has said there's not one piece of evidence that Israel has targeted civilians, journalists, medical staff, anything. Not one event. Now, are there reports from usually the Hamas side trying to say that Israel targeted, not a collateral damage or even an accident, if you want to talk about humanitarian workers, but targeted, which actions and intent really mattered. And why there is no genocide in Gaza is because genocide is a really definable term, which was created to say which I've heard some people, not you, some people say it's a mini Holocaust. Like Israel is putting Palestinian civilians on trains and putting them in infernos and intentionally trying to kill civilians. It's ridiculous, but it's defined as intent and actions.
Mm-hmm.
Having been on the ground and studied everything that's come before, Israel is doing everything not to harm civilians, but you have to compare it against situations where you have a defender who is trying to hold the terrain against the other enemy And then what are both sides doing to get civilians out of that fight?
Field of Greens, a small health regret, guys, is slouching in the dentist chair thinking, oh, I should have brushed and flossed better. Ooh, the dentist is telling me. But a big health regret is not listening to your doctor. And then you start to think, oh, man, I should have paid attention. I should have paid attention to nutrition like they told me to when I was younger. Here I am now. Things aren't going so well. Well, better health today and when it matters most is why I take Field of Greens, and I love it. Field of Greens is unlike any fruit and vegetable or green product. Field of Greens isn't watered down extracts. Field of Greens is an organic superfood. It's whole fruits and vegetables. Each fruit and vegetable was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and immune system. And only Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. So at your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Don't look back and say, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Field of Greens is a key to better health today and when it matters most. So let's get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code Kim. That is promo code Kim at fieldofgreens.com. I really do like this stuff a lot. Genuinely, really do like. People ask me, you really like that? You really drink that Field of Greens? Yes, I do, guys, and I really do like it. All right, let's go ahead and move on with the show. Hey guys, this was just a clip of a longer show. Catch the full show by going to KimIversonShow.com. It is free. It airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go back now and watch this full interview. I highly recommend it. Again, go to KimIversonShow.com. Thank you so much for watching.